Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Intuitive Healing and Guidance podcast. My name's Chris and I'm excited to share today on the topic of coming into balance, and there's a lot we can explore with that. So I've prepared let's say about 7 subtopics. So I'm looking forward to exploring those today with you, and I'm going to dive into the first subtopic. So, this is all to do with, coming into balance. And, this isn't an exhaustive list by any means, but it's just what's present for me and maybe what's prepared for me at this present time. And I feel like it is a big topic, and it's a really important topic. When we are in more balance, we're in more ease, we're in more of our capacity and capability to, live on our terms, and to live in our highest truth, and and to hear and act on our highest calling. And those kinds of things are much easier to respond to, if we have some balance in ourselves. So let's dive into the first topic, which is support and resourcefulness or resourcing. I guess it's an adjective, I think, a noun. No, an adjective. A doing word. A verb. There we go. I got there eventually. So resourcing is a verb. It's the process of supporting ourselves and enriching ourselves, and it's a process of taking stock of what is right in my world, what is right in my life, and in myself, and where do I feel, or how do I feel supported right now. And perhaps there's people that come to mind, and perhaps there's maybe there's a direction that feels supportive to move in. I think in order to really drop into this idea of resourcing, I think it's really helpful to be listening, to really maybe even slow down and really listen. What is really present, and where does my energy want to go? Where does it feel safe for my energy to go right now, or where am I being drawn? Whether it's safety or whether it's excitement that's drawing us, whatever it is that we need right now. It's creating a space so that we're more likely to be able to access that. And sometimes that can be slowing down and really being with ourselves, and really, coming into our breath or coming into our body, and feeling, what is alive, what is present, and being sort of as non-judgmental as we can, and just being present, and really, if we slow down, sometimes it's easier to listen to what it is we need. Like, what do I actually need? Maybe I can hear that more clearly if I'm in the right space. And sometimes the right space is, being in my own space. And sometimes it might be, I really feel drawn to connecting with this person right now, or I really feel drawn to, going to this particular event, and I'm feeling good about that. I'm feeling curious or excited about that, or so it really is, this deep listening of what do I need, and knowing that there are some, chances are, there's quite a lot you already know about how to fulfill your needs, and what maybe you just need to put some music on and dance for a little while, or maybe you need to go out to the down to the beach and breathe in some fresh air and connect to nature, or maybe you need to talk to a trusted friend and just be able to really articulate your feelings more clearly, and chances are that you've already got a good capacity to fulfill your needs, and there's quite a lot of tools in the toolbox already. So sometimes the answers are closer to us than we think, and look, occasionally the answer may be to try something new, or to really just trust that intuition that is leading us in a slightly new direction. Maybe it's a certain event that you've been thinking about, and maybe it's time I step into this new space. And so resourcing and support, those two words, there's a lot of resemblance between those two words, and they really are about like taking care of yourself, and sometimes we really have to listen and be willing to be honest with ourselves, and keep an open mind, because sometimes it's not really the analytical mind that really knows best. It could be that intuition I mentioned, that perhaps things drop in and they don't have to make 100% sense, but if they feel right, then maybe that is the direction to head in. If it feels like there's an alignment with that, and a groundedness with that, or being drawn into that. If your energy wants to move there, and you feel ready to, maybe that is the way to go, and the mind sometimes will catch up later. It doesn't necessarily, if we're being ruled by our mind, it may not be, we may not want to be sort of living in that space as we discover what our needs are, or we make decisions. We really want to be able to connect to that, that other channel that we might call intuition. So yeah, that is the first topic I wanted to touch on. Just making sure we have some tools to resource and to support ourselves, and that we have some awareness, and we're putting value on this. It's really important. If we get this piece, in a good place or a better place, it's so much easier to do life from that place. And it's a constant practice. I've had a journey with this myself, where coming from a place of my nervous system being pretty sort of out of whack, and needing to learn a lot about and go through a fair bit, quite a lot, to be able to bring it into a bit more harmony and a bit more regulation. So even just being curious about, where is my nervous system? Maybe you've had a really big week, and you don't want to take on too much at the moment, and maybe you just want to pop yourself on the couch and put some music on, or watch a movie, or do something comforting, or something that's really low key, something that's really safe. Or maybe you're really bored and you just want to get out and do something, and you're sick of sitting around, and and you're getting sort of anxious because I've got this energy and I don't know what to do with it, but I need to do something, and you could be either of those situations, or something in the middle, and the point is, listen to the nervous system, because it plays a big part in what is it that I need right now, and listening to the nervous system, we want to include that in our inquiries, in our inquiries as we really discover and drop into meeting our needs, or at least moving in that direction. Yeah, so it's a big topic, support and resourcing, but I just want to sort of introduce some ideas, and it's and it's definitely part of this notion of coming into balance is having some sort of awareness and grasp on how can I support myself, how can I resource myself as a foundation and as a home base where I can operate from, and then move from. So hopefully that gives you some ideas on that topic. So yeah, moving forward, I want to talk about the next piece in these 7 pieces I'm exploring today. So number 2, connection and emotional intelligence. And this is very related to what we were just talking about. It definitely is about deep listening and having a space to listen, and whether we're connecting with ourselves or connecting with another person, being in that place of listening. And it doesn't mean that you've got to be just listening and not talking the whole time. It's about listening while you're talking and listening while the other person's talking, and really listening also to the overall dynamic that's happening. Is this conversation supporting both of you? Is it fulfilling the needs of both of you, or does the direction need to change, or does the conversation need to finish or complete? And these are sort of the inquiries we can be checking in on, and I think emotional intelligence is part of that. When we're connected to our emotions and our energy, we can see, is my energy actually, is it rising? Is it able to meet my needs and the needs of this other person or this group of people? Or is it being used up and it's starting to become uncomfortable and I'm starting to become depleted? And, what is my emotional intelligence telling me? Because, I don't want to stay in that place if it's becoming difficult, because, then I will start to get upset eventually, but if I can, respond and maybe it's a case of changing the subject, or, asking a different question, or maybe, maybe it's a case of like, maybe you are drawn somewhere else in the room if you're in a group of people, and it's just finding the words, like, like, excuse me for a moment, I feel like I need to say hi to this person, and I'd love to continue this soon. And that's just a respectful way of exiting a conversation and perhaps opening up a conversation that might be more appropriate to what your needs are at the moment. So, and a lot of this comes back to intuition as well. Just like we were saying, sometimes it's not about forcing anything. If the conversation you're currently in, it may not be the right time for it, or it may not be the connection that is needed right now, and sometimes that's salvageable and it can be redirected and lifted if you like, and other times we need to sort of let it go, and if we're feeling called somewhere else, just having the tools to be able to, I suppose, navigate into that with some amount of grace and as much as you can. I mean, it's group dynamics, I think, are, it's not necessarily like it's going to bring up little challenges or big challenges at times. So it's a journey. Even just a one-to-one conversation can be a journey, and even just relating to ourselves is a journey. So imagine, multiplying that in a room with all these other people. So be compassionate, with yourself and with others as best you can. So emotional intelligence, and again, there's so much I can say on connection and emotional intelligence, but I'd like to this is a bit of an overview session today. So we're just touching on these topics, and we can dip into them more deeply, and more specifically, perhaps in a future episode. I'm going to move on to number 3, purpose and multidimensional being. I feel like this is really relevant at the moment, just being aware of the multidimensional nature of purpose, and perhaps that has challenged it. I know it's challenged my ego and my sense of identity, and who am I, and growing up in a world of get an education and decide who you are, and who you are is defined by what you do and your career, and so much of who you are, and becoming so attached to that, and then going through this process of detaching to that, and not being ruled by it. It's got its place, and it's still important, and maybe we still have a primary identity in terms of how we function in a work capacity, but perhaps we don't want to be totally ruled by that, or think that that's all of who we are, because I feel like in the world right now, there's a lot of people tuning in to so many different abilities, and so many different memories, and whether they're in this current life or in previous lives, but the soul is coming online more, and the soul, some of us are very old souls and who have known many lives, and recognize this resonance with different times, different times of existence, and the point is, we often can be bouncing between what seems like these multiple timelines or multiple worlds, or multiple abilities, and some of them really feel vibrant at certain times. And I know for me, I identify as a musician. I identify as an alternative therapist, and recently I identify as a keynote speaker, and I did my first event actually a few days ago, and I might that was it was great to make a start with that, and I'm excited to share more about that in a separate episode. And the thing is, we have all these different dimensions of who we are, and we don't want our personality and our ego and our attachment to identity to block our soul's calling and our soul's resonance. And so I think this has a lot to do with trust, and deepening into trust, trusting, who am I really, who am I today? Because the ego can get in the way and go, oh no, but you decided 2 years ago that you were going to be this person, and don't deviate from that today. And it's like, well, actually, we need to make space for what wants to come through, for if we want to really come into the fullness of our soul's gifts and our soul's aliveness. I really think we're going through an interesting time in the world where, many of us are sort of becoming more aware of these multiple channels and how our energy, is flowing in different channels at different times, and finding a way to sort of bring that into service in the world. That's not always easy, but it is. For me, it's required patience and compassion with myself to build these structures of how I can be of service, and also respond to the subtleties of the directions of each of these abilities, perhaps, that I'm becoming more attuned to. In other words, maybe I can't just work in a traditional kind of job, and I might lose too much of those subtleties. I may not have the freedom to move, and depending on the job, I may have less freedom in some jobs to really be myself, be authentic, and utilize my abilities and what my energy is calling for, and in terms of how I want to be expressive and how I want to be serving. So serving others, serving myself. So it's a very interesting time in the world where I think we're playing around with these different abilities and channels and awareness of perhaps we're not just one thing. We're not just a doctor or an athlete or a musician or an artist, or sure that all of those are important ways of being, and maybe some of us do feel very strongly connected to those, but we may be other things as well, and it's just about really being real with ourselves and being open and really listening, not being ruled by our identities, but by letting them serve us and our needs and the needs of others, in the way that we can meet others and meet within the world and within the structures that we're setting up. So, because I still feel a strong resonance with being a musician, but even within that identity of being a musician, there's all these sub-identities. I'm the guitar player who's very blues and rock influenced and hard rock influenced, and then I'm also this singer who's very, I don't know, maybe a bit more soothing. That when it's going well, it's more soothing, or it's more it's a lighter energy, or it's a different energy. And then when I'm a songwriter, it's quite therapeutic. It's this sort of healing energy, and when I'm improvising, it's more this sort of almost like this dance, like this getting into a zone where I just let go and I surrender, this surrendered dance, energetically speaking. So there's so much to explore even within the framework of, being a musician. And then sometimes I'm not singing words, I'm just making sound, and there's the vibration of sound and just being in vibration with different frequencies of sound, and also having melodies come through, but I don't necessarily need to attach words to them. Maybe the melodies speak enough for me. Maybe they're telling a story in a way, even if I don't understand the logical side of that completely, or I don't want to attach words to it. So, but then other times I just want to pick up the guitar and just play and sing some, songs that are very typical, and, so it depends, it's about having the freedom to be authentic in the moment. So purpose and multidimensional being, and again, that's a big topic, but we've touched on it, and that's really my intention today. Moving forward, so I'm going to talk now about, excuse me for a moment, just watching the time and hoping this all flows within a reasonable time frame, whatever that means. But now we have passion, challenge, and adventure. And this is, when I say these words, I get, there's excitement, there's stepping into the unknown, there's, there is, it does connect to purpose. I think it's so important that there is passion in our purpose, which means, there's this electricity to what we're doing. Like there's this energy that wants to flow. Like the last thing we want to do is go, I found my purpose, and then I'm going to, this is what I'm going to do, and from 9 to 5. But if it's depleting our energy and there isn't a passion, it's perhaps it's not our purpose, or it's not our purpose anymore, so purpose doesn't necessarily mean, a lifelong commitment, it or doing something all the time. It can mean, that there can be a part-time aspect to purpose. And it's really important that, we check in. Is there passion in what I'm doing? And is there this, release of energy in a good way, in a healthy way? Can my purpose allow energy to come through me, so that I can, really honor, this honor this, this need to be, alive and have, vibrancy in me, and flow. Flow is movement of energy. Because otherwise, if we're sort of stagnant or repressed or suppressed, our energy is just like being held, and that will create imbalance, which is obviously the opposite of what we're trying to achieve here. So, finding some way in our own life and in our, service in the world where we can work, where there's perhaps a tension that is resolving, a release. It's like an artist releases an album. I mean, they spend all this time, working on songs and recording, and then it's sort of building up, and it's all contained, and then it releases into the world, and it's like, this passion project has been released, and there's a flow again. There's this big flow, like there's this flow during the creation process, and then there's perhaps a holding of that flow, and then there's a release of it, and it flows into the world, and it starts to mean something to other people as well as just the creator. So that's an example of, passion and this idea of having a structure, like the album and the release of the album, and being able to play music on different sound systems around the world, and streaming the music, and it's available to all these people. And like, that's an example of a structure that, our passion can work through. Just being curious about, what this looks like for you, and where are you at with the structures in your life, and the passion in your life, and the flow in your life, and is your energy being directed through all of that, and to allow that that newness and that vitalization of you, because there's this current of life that's coming through you and coming into the world. So anyway, moving forward, the next topic is recovery, vulnerability, and healing. Wow, I've picked some big topics for today. So if you do all these, I hope it helps you come into balance. Um, yeah, even if you just, do something with these, of course, or just take them on board and see where they take you, you'll relate to these in your own way, and just, listen to that and go with that. So recovery, vulnerability, and healing. Yeah, and I will drop into this more deeply in a future episode, but let's touch on it briefly. Trauma is a real sort of I'm not going to, I don't know if buzzword is the right word, because it's such a dense, serious word, trauma, and then buzz is such a excitable word. Maybe they don't go together very well. But we hear the word trauma perhaps more and more, and the reality is, there's all these different layers and ways in which trauma has occurred, both in individuals and collectively, and both in this current, timeline and generation, and then in past generations. So that's why it feels like a big, heavy word, because there is so much to it. And, my encouragement at the moment is, be patient and be compassionate. And it's a journey, and it's a journey of, recovery and healing, and allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, so that we can touch on the feelings that perhaps have been kept in the dark, and perhaps are stifling the flow of life that we really long for, because trauma can create blockages in our system, on a number of levels. And as I mentioned, I'd love to drop into this deeper, explore it a bit more in its own kind of podcast episode, because it is a really, really big, deep topic. But what I want to offer on this topic today is, be kind and gentle and compassionate with yourself. Maybe you've already processed a fair bit of challenge in your past, or trauma in your past, or maybe you're in the middle of it, or maybe you're not even sure, what trauma, looks like for you, or, wherever you may be at the moment, just know that, there is more hope, and there is more community out there to support, recoveries and healing, and to support, both men and women in being vulnerable, and being able to, and children as well, of course, in being able to just be themselves, being able to be authentic. There's more spaces where, whether you're a man or a woman or a child, or, however you identify, or whoever you are, whatever's right for you, whoever you are, there's a safe space that you can drop into, and you can connect with, and there's more communities where, things like, the light and the darkness can be welcomed, and it's an exciting time in the world in that regard, and it can be a confronting journey at times, but there's a lot more hope and resources and community these days. So just I know for me, I've reached out many times, and I've explored and researched, and gotten myself involved with different mentors, different groups, and I'm really grateful for some amazing people that have been there with me and for me, and because it has helped me immensely in working through traumas in my life and things that were definitely holding me back in my life. So once again, really big topic. So wherever you're at in your journey, even if your story may be your story, but it's likely that there'll be other people that can really relate to what you might be feeling, like on an emotional level. Maybe there's some sadness or some intensity, or or maybe you're experiencing a lot more vibrancy and joy as well, and it's likely that you'll come into both of those. Like, the more shadows that you can process and bring into light, the more space will open up for more lighter emotions as well. So your energy will be more bouncy and vibrant and alive as well. So it's really it's an amazing journey in some ways. It can be very uncomfortable and confronting, obviously, working with trauma and through trauma, but it can be very liberating when we find the right people and the right, let's say, ways of working with it. It can be very liberating and empowering, and it's really about reclaiming what has become lost or disconnected, and there's so much to say on this topic, and I would love to return to it in the near future, in a very specific kind of episode where we can really dive into it even more. So moving on, I'd love to talk about love and relationships. And like I said, these topics are just getting bigger and bigger. I wrote all these out, and I was like, and then I just sort of stopped thinking about the order in which they're written out, and and now I'm just kind of cycling through my notes and going, oh, okay, that's next. Oh, that's next. So again, big topic, and two big topics, love and relationships. Wow. So definitely where my energy is at today, I'm just going to touch on them because otherwise we'd be here for hours, and we'll definitely spend more time unpacking each of these individually. And this really is just like a bit of an introduction into what I want to begin to share on these topics, and whatever is present for me as well, and whatever I can offer in the moment, and so I wrote down some questions about love. I feel like love can be, it's such an amazing, beautiful thing, and it can also be something that maybe we're not always sure how to talk about it, and maybe it sort of gets relegated to the back of conversations or outside of typical conversations, and we don't want to feel awkward talking about love, and maybe there's like, well, what if I don't have all the answers about it right now? Then I better just not mention it at all. And it's such a vast, I'm I mean, I'm calling it a vast thing, but that's just because I can't think of another way to articulate that feeling or that thought. But yeah, I can almost think of it as like this ocean, this ocean, and where are we in the ocean right now, and how deep is the ocean, and how wide is the ocean, and who knows? Like, it's not easy to see, and sometimes the ocean can be very serene, and other times it can be quite stormy and rough. And I know sometimes in life, depending on what we're going through, it can be harder to love ourselves and others, and but I was also thinking about this term unconditional love, and again, that's another sort of, it's such an appealing word, yet it can be such a confronting word, because it's like, well, do I have that? Do I have unconditional love? And like, if I don't have it, does anyone else have it? And like, should I feel bad about myself if I don't have it? And like, can I ever change it? If I don't have it, can I get it? And, again, unconditional love is just such a big, it feels like such a big, beautiful, but, at times intimidating concept. And it's not always easy to love ourselves unconditionally or love others unconditionally. It's not always easy. But that doesn't mean we should abandon love either. So, maybe I'll offer some questions to stimulate our, how can we look at love? How can we experience love? So I'm just going to reel off a few questions. Where is love in each moment? And I know that the ego can block love at times, and sometimes it is a challenge to really drop into love, and we might be in an unfamiliar situation or in a difficult situation, and our survival instincts will take over, and different parts of us will shut down or be less active, and maybe our certain parts of our mind will come online, and really there can be a little bit of a panic or a bit of an intensity to things have to get to this place and then I can relax, and it can be challenging to really experience love through all of that. So yeah, we do want to bring compassion in as well with love, and the compassion is like, wherever I'm at with love right now, can I just have some compassion? Can I give myself some compassion? And then there's a question, how is love showing up in my life right now? Like, maybe it's just a case of, opening our eyes to what's actually here, There probably, chances are there probably is, and I hope this isn't triggering for anyone, but chances are there probably is someone, at least, maybe many people, maybe one person at least, that has some love for you. I know I've had moments of deep aloneness, and it can be hard to see, is someone here for me right now, or can they be here for me? And I know in those moments, it can be challenging to really trust love. So yeah, we will be challenged by love. In my experience has been, that's been true, but we can also be deeply enriched and rewarded by love, and love can exist in so many ways, in so many forms, and can take on so many forms, and even just a walk to the beach can be so loving, if it's just what we need, and maybe just the fresh air, breathing in the air and looking out at the water and, really just dropping into the moment and enjoying the colours of the water and the sky and the trees and the sound of the birds. And, it can be very sensory, and it can evoke different feelings and emotions that can be very loving, joy or freedom. There's love in so many colours and so many feelings. I'm gonna come back to love in another topic, and maybe relationships too, because they're both super big, important topics, and just want to keep the time on this episode sort of under wraps a little bit, and I feel like I just want to be able to give a whole episode to love and relationships. So anyway, it's good to be able to share a few things on that topic, and I look forward to revisiting it and unpacking things a bit more. So we are moving along here. So this is number 7, authenticity and prosperity. Okay, so this is great. I mean, I will say this, it's so much easier to experience love when we're in our authenticity, when we are being true to ourselves. It's so much easier to have joy, even joy in some level of sadness or some level of grief. There's exceptions to that. I mean, there's different levels of sadness and grief where it's very difficult to have any joy, of course, but, sadness and grief can come through, on more subtle levels as well. They don't necessarily need to come through, in the wake of tragedy or anything. Obviously they can, but even just we can grieve, changes in friendships or changes in our own life, or and there can be so much just being real with, okay, I am noticing this grief, that this energy coming through. It's if I can be with it, if I can allow it and surrender to it, there's at least some peace or some joy in that, and there can be relief. I think there's a lot of joy in relief, when we make it through the other side of something fairly, profound or turbulent, or some sort of release. Like it could be an emotional release of sadness or grief or anger or frustration, and there can be this this joy, like, oh, I'm still here and I made it through the storm, or yeah, so giving ourselves permission to have that joy in being real with what is, to the extent that we can, there's, so that's something I want to share about authenticity. And also having a direction and listening to what is my North Star, what is my true north, and being courageous enough to own, like, my direction might be a bit different to this other person, whether this other, like this friend of mine or this mentor of mine, like my direction might be slightly different or significantly different, And that's okay. And like, can I own that for myself? And then can I own it when I show up in the world? Um, can I really drop into that truth for me? Because I know my power is there, my healthy power, where my soul, my heart, my body is drawing me towards. Can I start to own that, in my own space and in the space of others, and really be seen in who I am, where am I going? Where am I going that's right for me? And allowing ourselves that and giving ourselves permission. So there's so much authenticity in that. And embracing our uniqueness. And prosperity, I really like that word. And what's coming up for me at the moment is this idea of shared wealth. And we all have gifts, and being able to wield our gifts both for ourselves and for others, and allowing this sharing of our gifts, that creates such an invaluable wealth, really. And often we might be asking, well, what are my gifts specifically? And what I want to say at the moment is maybe what is most profound is really just giving yourself permission to show up in who you really are. That is a gift. That is a huge gift, because being able to come into the world as who you really are, and at the same time not being constricted to some idea of who you need to be on an ongoing basis, but who you are in the present. And that means, sometimes there's a lot of joy or happiness or wisdom to share. Other times it could be, there's vulnerability to share, because, it doesn't matter where we are on our journey, we go through ups and downs, and we go through times of ease, and we go through times of hardship, and being able to show up, more and more in the humanity of who we are, like the spectrum of who we are, is such a gift. It gives so much permission, and to others as well as ourselves. We're giving so much permission to ourselves to be able to do that, and therefore giving permission to others so they can do their version of it. Yeah, and there's a lot more to say on prosperity and authenticity. And I'm really, really glad to be able to touch on these topics. And I hope you've gotten something out of, this exploration today. And we just sort of dipped into about 7 topics, I think it was. But as you know, there's, these 7 topics there's so much there, love and relationships and recovery and healing, and there's really more than 7 major topics, really. So yeah, just a little bit of a introduction into sort of, you know, some of what can be explored perhaps. And yeah, and I'm looking forward to sharing more. And yeah, and I may even do a Coming into Balance part 2, and we can sort of even just, you know, tie some of this up a little bit more into, you know, how is all of this bringing me into balance? And, you know, there's also some other topics around balance that I would like to touch on in a future episode around, you know, these different archetypes that, you know, our soul can recognize as well, and being able to honor these different archetypes that may want to be of service through us and in our journey. So yeah, so good to share this with you, and yeah, I hope it's of some benefit and value to you. And if you would like to support this podcast, it's still in its fairly early stages, and you know, I would love, you know, if you would like to share this with your friends, you know, that'd be amazing. It'd be a big support, and you know, I just want to be able to offer what I can in this particular format. You know, because this is one of the passions I have in my life, is to share my experiences and my ways of looking at things, and you know, with the intention of hopefully, you know, helping others. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed it, and look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Yeah, and stay tuned, and I'll keep you in the loop about, you know, what we might get into next. All right, have a great day or evening wherever you are. See you next time.